Hello, I'm Dr. Valerie Masuda. I'm a palliative care physician, and welcome to Tea with Val. Today, we're going to talk about incontinence. So let's talk about urinary incontinence. So your bladder is just a bag with a tube. Obviously, the women's tube is somewhat shorter than the men's tube. The bladder is actually a big muscle, and when it gets to a certain point, it wants to contract, and it'll send a message to your brain saying, I'm full, I gotta pee. Now, sometimes this muscle's a little bit hyperactive and it can start to actually spasm or it can start to contract. You have some muscles here that hold that door closed, and you think, I really got to go to the bathroom. And by the time you get to the bathroom, then you can relax these muscles and release the urine. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you can have urinary incontinence. The first is sometimes certain things can make this bladder muscle a little bit hyperactive. And that's called a hyperactive bladder, and it can give you the sensation that you really need to pee right away. Sometimes an infection or irritation or even like a bladder tumor can cause the muscle to be irritated, and then it's always sort of spasming and you feel like you have to go right away. And if you don't have this door very strong, then sometimes you can be incontinent on the way to the bathroom. The other reasons that you can be incontinent is if this bladder muscle is just, this doorway muscle is not actually very strong. This can happens to women a lot if they've had many children. The pelvic floor becomes a little bit weak, and that can cause incontinence when the bladder muscle decides to contract. Sometimes if you have a spinal cord injury, sometimes if you have involvement of a tumor with nerves, sometimes diabetes can cause this, causing problems with nerves. This muscle becomes weak, and then you don't have the same control. The other thing that can happen is there's an obstruction to this tube. This can happen with tumors, or it can happen often with men. As they grow older, their prostate can enlarge and cause this tube to become quite narrow. And what happens is it can actually close off a fair bit, and the bladder can become bigger and more stretched. And sometimes you lose the capacity to really feel whether your bladder is really full, if this happens over a long period of time. When the bladder reaches its maximum capacity and the pressure here is really high, people then can lose urine even past that obstruction. So they may find they're dribbling all the time. And they may, in fact, be dribbling all the time with a massive bladder. So the bottom line is, some of these conditions are treatable. So rather than just managing incontinence, it's important to see your doctor to find out what the cause of the incontinence is. The other kind of incontinence is incontinence with stool. And again, it's the same sort of thing. If they say this is your lower bowel and this is the opening, if you have an obstruction here, like this, the only thing that can get through can be just soft stool or liquid stool, and that just sort of comes out, and you don't really have control over it. So this obstruction can be a tumor, or it can be just constipated stool that's filling the bottom of your gut. Other causes of incontinence of stool can be a spinal cord injury or tumors in this area, which affect the muscle, so you lose control. If you have constipation that's causing this sort of liquid soft stool just coming out, this is the best thing for it. Taking Restoralax sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, which is safe, but it'll help liquefy that constipated stool that's blocking everything up. Again, it's really important to be examined to see if this is the cause of your incontinence. Now we're going to talk about things to manage your incontinence. There's a lot of products on the market, and sometimes it's really difficult to know what to get. These are incontinence briefs, and they come in all kinds of different sizes. They're like underwear, but the underwear has this big pad here which absorbs a fair bit of liquid. And in these pads or briefs that are meant for men, most of the padding is in the front because that's where the urine comes from. If you're looking at briefs for women, most of the padding is down below where the urine comes from. But these can be super expensive. What you could do, depending on how much volume you're producing, is using these pads. These are for women who have their periods, and they are very absorbent, and it's cheaper. So all you do is you take this pad, it has a sticky back, you put it down into your underwear. If you're a man, you put it more into the front of your underwear, and if you're a woman, you put more in the center. This can also work for stool. So you can put this in, depending on how much volume you're producing. The great thing is that these are small. They fit in your pocket, they fit in your purse, and they're discreet. You can also, when you're done with them, take them out of your underwear and you dispose of them in a garbage. The other thing you can do is if you're just having some little bit of soiling in your underwear, you can use these things called panty liners. And they're very discreet and small. And they have a little sticky backing on them. You put into your underwear. And if it's just a little bit of soiling with stool, then it's easy just to peel off, dispose, and then you're not using these expensive briefs all the time. Of note, if you are using pads or briefs, it's important to use a garbage which is sealable, because these start to smell after a while, and sometimes they can smell a lot after a while. So disposing of your garbage every day, if you have used briefs, is really important. Whether you have urine incontinence or stool incontinence, it's really important to maintain really good habits. If you have urine incontinence, you need to set up some kind of regular routine, like going to empty your bladder first thing in the morning, before lunch, before dinner, before bedtime. And if you are incontinent of stool, it's important to keep really good bowel habits. And that may mean using Laxaday or Restore-Lax every single day. It may mean sitting on the toilet every morning in order to give yourself time to empty your bowels. You have to set up some kind of routine. If you look at the constipation video, we'll talk a little bit about how to keep your bowels going. I'm going to talk about this stuff. This is toilet paper, and it's really hard on your bum. Anybody who's had incontinence or diarrhea finds out that if you're going to the bathroom a lot, a few wipes, your bum starts feeling really sore. So there are other ways to keep your bum clean without having to wipe all the time. One thing we're going to use is just water to clean yourself. And there are all kinds of different ways you can do that. You can invest in a bidet toilet, and these are toilet seats like this that are powered. They have a reservoir for warm water and controls either on the toilet itself or on the wall. And you can adjust the flow of the water, the direction of the water, as well as the temperature of the water. But if you don't have that kind of money to invest, you can actually invest in these small portable bidets. They have a water reservoir here, and you flick this up, and this you direct at the dirty part, and then there's usually just a on-off button that directs the water directly to the part that's dirty. These are great. They're great for traveling, but they're great for home if you don't have a bidet. The other thing are sitz baths. And sitz baths are great, especially if you have a really sore bum. And that can be sore just around the anus, or it could be sore for women in the area of the vagina, or sometimes in both men and women, it can be anywhere around that area. So we have something called a sitz bath. A sitz bath is a great thing. They're cheap, they're plastic, and what they do is they go on the toilet between just the toilet and lifting up the seat. And what you do is you fill them with nice warm water. Comme ça. All the way to the top. And when you sit down in it, nice warm water hits all the important parts. And any of the excess water actually just drains out the back into the toilet. Most sitz baths also come with a bag. You can fill this bag with warm water. You can hang it up on your door. And then you can open this, and what this provides is a flow of water that you can direct also to the areas that you feel that need a little bit more washing. These can also fit directly into the toilet, and then you can adjust the direction of flow like that. To wipe yourself, then you're not wiping with toilet paper necessarily, you're just blotting it dry, which is much more gentler on those parts that are really sore. Thank you for joining me on Tea with Val. If you found this video helpful, please feel free to share. As well, you can like this video, and you can also subscribe to this channel for more videos.